You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website www.wadr.org.
This is the live coverage of the 2025 presidential election in Guinea.
Good evening and welcome once again to WADR's Guinea Decides, our fourth special broadcast on Guinea's presidential election 2025. I am Augustine Kali. Thank you for staying with us for this in-depth and continuing election coverage. Polling stations have officially ended across Guinea, with voting centers closing at 6 p.m. this evening. As a reminder, the polls opened earlier today at 7 a.m. with more than 6 million registered voters going to the polls today to elect a Democratic president. So thank you for being with us on this special broadcast, which is titled WADR Guinea Decides. And except for other problems that may be happening across polling stations, but it is expected that vote counting should be underway. And there are also diaspora voting taking place in Senegal and the Gambia. So far from the Guinean embassy in Dakar, a statement states that vote took place in around 5 regions, and that include the Dakar region, the Kédougou region, Kaolack, St. Louis, and Chess. We had our reporters covering those places, and also in the Gambia, where some Guineans living in the Gambia also cast their ballot today to ensure that this crucial moment passes by. We will bring you all the details. So officially ending in Guinea's presidential election with polling stations closing across the country, we now turn to Conakry, where our reporter Aissatou Diallo is on the ground following the development at the close of polls and the immediate reactions.
Guinea's first presidential election since the 2021 military coup concluded today with polls closing nationwide, including in the capital Conakry. Conducted under a new constitution adopted in 2025, the vote represents a significant moment in the country's transition towards constitutional governance. Polling stations opened early, and despite a heavy security presence, the voting proceeded in a calm and orderly manner. Women and youth actively participated as voters, officers, and observers, though some stations, particularly in urban areas, reported a lower turnout later in the day. Tens of thousands of police, gendarmes, and aerial patrols were deployed across the country to maintain order and ensure voter safety. Civil society groups, alongside regional organizations including ECOWAS and the African Union, monitored the electoral process and early counting of ballots. While many citizens engaged peacefully, advocacy groups highlighted concerns about political freedoms, limited opposition participation, and restricted media access. Shops and businesses likely remained closed, and communities discussed election while children observed civic engagement. The next stage involves the counting of ballots, with provisional results expected within 48 to 72 hours. Observers and the public are closely watching, as the outcome will shape Guinea's political direction election on the transition to a civilian rule. In general, the election marks a critical juncture for Guinea, reflecting both hopes for stability and economic development and ongoing concerns about electoral fairness and political inclusion.
Well, thanks to Aissatou Jallo for that report. We will join Aissatou just in a jiffy to let you know that there are 9 candidates vying for the presidency, each presenting a distinct vision of rebuilding a sustainable democracy in West Africa. There is only one female standing among those 8 men. So, what does it mean for women's participation? At this moment, let's connect with Aissatou in Conakry. Good evening, Aissatou, and welcome.
Thank you so much, and good evening.
All right. It's good to have you with us again. You've been with us since this morning, touring polling stations and getting some feedbacks and also reporting them. But I just listened to your report. You stated that polls officially closed and results are expected about 48 or 72 hours. Take us through also about how the day went in terms of the process, smoothness and all. What more can you tell us about the counting process and how it is done?
Actually, thank you very much. And as I said in the report, Guinea held its first presidential election since the 2023 coup and conducted under the new 2025 constitution. The vote represented a key moment in the country's transition towards constitutional governance and the potential formalization of General Mamadi Doumbouya's leadership. So while the election was carried out in an organized and secure manner, structural and political limitations, such as restricted competition and constrained freedoms, posed challenges to full electoral fairness. So the results are expected to influence Guinea's political trajectory, governance, and the broader transition to civilian rule, reflecting both aspirations for the stability and ongoing concerns about inclusivity.
Initially, you said there was some form of low turnout. That was during the afternoon hours. Tell us, before the close of poll, did you observe any change in terms of turnout?
It was still the same. Like people were not going to the polls anymore. It was really empty in the evening.
Was it in the form of an emptied voting center at that moment?
Yes, indeed.
Well, what's about the counting process so far? How is it going?
The counting process was also going smoothly with the observation missions in place and the security personnel as well.
Did you observe the presence of observers, party agents, and other electoral staff and officials, international officials watching the process?
Yes. Just visiting one of the polling stations around the neighborhood. This was observed while I was there.
Did candidates speak about their willingness to accept the official results?
From what I've heard today, I did not hear anything about that for the moment yet. So we're expecting to hear from them maybe today or tomorrow.
Yes, because when we initially started the broadcast, Faya Milimono made some statements. There were some series of accusations where party agents being prevented and some form of irregularities. But as a journalist, did you observe any of such?
From the polls that I visited this morning up to the evening hours, actually, I did not observe any abnormalities from the polling station.
Well, this is a crucial moment right now, the vote counting. What are some of the expectations of Guineans for the next president?
Actually, citizens, civil society, organizations, and international observers are several expectations for Guinea's next president, reflecting the nation's political, economic, and social priorities. The next president is expected to strengthen democratic institutions and ensure a smooth transition to civilian rule, He is also expected to promote transparency, accountability, and political inclusion, especially allowing space for opposition and diverse voices. The next president of Guinea is also expected to make some economic development, advance major initiatives, particularly in the mining and infrastructure, including projects like the Simandu 2040 plan. In a summary, the next president is expected to balance political stability with inclusivity, economic growth, with social development, and security with human rights, guiding Guinea towards a more stable and prosperous future.
All right, before we let you go, Aissatou, what can you say about the counting process? Do you think this will be completed some hours from now? Because we've gone 1 hour, 12 minutes since polls closed at 6 p.m. Is the counting process speedy? Is it fast? Or do you anticipate anything else?
Actually, there's nothing to be said for the moment. What we do is like cross fingers and hope things move smoothly, and things the counting goes on quickly so that we can get something by tomorrow.
All right, anything else you want to say before we take leave of you, Aissatou? It's been a wonderful time having you on the field today.
Okay, it's also been a wonderful moment being with you for whole day today, and thanks for everything.
All right, thanks to Aissatou Jallow, who has been on the field in Conakry, the Guinean capital, bringing us the details. You heard about what she said. So the aspect of low turnout began this morning up to the closure of polls. Tightening security measures in place and vote counting is ongoing, with results expected between 48 hours to 72 hours. That's according to what she said. But let's keep watching the process. Let's know how it will go. Remember, I said that one female presidential candidate is standing in this crucial election in Guinea. Does that ring a bell? Well, that's for you to answer. However, this female candidate, Makale Kamara, assistant female diplomat, has been speaking during the voting process. Here is an extract of her statement.
Dieu merci. Les Soussous disent que
thank God. The Susu people say I didn't vote for myself in 2020. Thank God. This time I'm voting happily in peace and dignity. I didn't find a crowd here, perhaps because it's already 2 p.m., but I'm going to vote. Thank God. It's calm all around. There's no pushing or shoving. There's no noise, no fighting around. Alhamdulillah, there's peace. What's important for this country is peace, first and foremost. Above all else, we can't do anything without this calm, this peace, this transparency. Thank God I voted. Today, the Guineans will decide their future. The people are sovereign, and they express this sovereignty through their vote. Today, we're going to entrust this country to a woman, not a man. Thank God. May God do what is best for all of us. May the prosperity we so eagerly await through all our grand projects find its way onto our plates, into our pockets, and into the lives of our children. Health is one thing. The future of this country is bright, and it will be, especially if Guineans are motivated to make it so. Because the work is up to us. No one can build this country without us. We must work, always work hard, and work some more. That is the solution.
Il faut travailler, toujours travailler, beaucoup travailler, encore travailler.
Well, Makale Kamara there, the issue about women is very crucial, not just to Guinea, but the world at large. And given the fact that there is only one female participating in this election, that's a representation of women. But is that enough? Well, analysts will say it's not enough. Human rights defenders will say it's not enough. Women rights advocate, people who push for equality, gender equality, will say that it's not right. But there's always a step for these processes. Well, Christopher Aticho just came back from the field. He witnessed some voting processes taking place in the Dakar region, here in Senegal. What are the Guineans in Senegal saying? What did he see from there? Christopher joins me right here in studio. One of the designated centers that he visited was right here in the Dakar region. But let's know what's happening. Chris, welcome. Good evening to you.
Thank you very much, Augustine Colley, for having me in studio once again.
What can you tell us? Welcome back from the field. What can you tell us? What did you see?
Right, and so indeed you can really see these Guinean diasporans in Senegal here who are very eager to also contribute to nation building back home in Guinea, and of course to contribute to saying that we were part of the process, that we had a new democratic dispensation, because this is a statement that they want to make to the world, looking at the fact that the past 5 years in the Sahel region has been challenged with lots of military takeovers, and of course this particular coup in Guinea happened in the year 2021 on September, and so I mean, right after the coup, they were having conversations to actually return as quick as possible back to democratic dispensation, as what happened in the year 2010. But of course, that did not happen. And so today you can clearly see on the faces of Guineans in Senegal right here that indeed we want a return to the constitutional rule. And then whatever be the result of today's outcome, they are ready to give democracy a chance to once again transpire. So I mean, in the latter part of when voting was about to end at where I was, which is the Eko Alassane Njai Alou station here in Dakar, of course, as you rightly indicated, that 5 regions where voting processes actually took place in the course of the day. So at my station, you see, not all the voters had their voting cards at hand already. If you have your voting card already, what you do is that you enter in, and then you'd be directed on which of the stations or where your number is, where your voting center is, to be able to go and then vote. But if you do not have your voting card, then the last opportunity given you is on the voting day, which is the fact that you'd have to come in early and then sort out or search for your vote card. Okay, and so at the latter part of the voting process, which was somewhere around 5:45, 5:50 thereabouts, I mean, electoral officials together with the police had to now stop people from searching for their card.
Now, let me understand something. Those who perhaps lost their voting card went to the voting center today to vote.
To search. And so, you know,
how were they searching for the card?
So, I mean, if you follow us on Facebook right now, you'd obviously see people searching, where people have to mention the electoral officials in charge of that particular session would have to be mentioning the names of people for them to come for their card.
Is it a form of card replacement on the day of election before you vote?
Not necessarily card replacement, because these are diasporans and they are not home. So a room was given, a window was given that, look, you're a Guinean and you want to be part of today's election, you need to have a designated card, which is back in our local jurisdiction, we'll call it voters ID card or voters card, to be able to enable you be part of the whole election process. And so these people did not have the card. And so what you do is, if you do not have it prior to the election day, then today is the last window given you to come and then search for your card, and when you find it, then you'll be able to go and then participate in the voting process. And so as at 5:45, 5:50 thereabouts, which is some 10 minutes shy away from the top of the hour, 6 o'clock, which is where voting actually ends, these people who were in the searching process did not find their card. And while they were still searching, authorities were like, man, it's time, and so you'd have to stop. So these people were not given the opportunity to vote. However, should be noted.
How many of them did you find?
Well, I mean, from what I saw, there were quite a bunch of people who were in the whole searching process. If you follow us on Facebook right now, you will see many people, you know, in the whole, I wouldn't say pool, but of course, it looks like a pool of people really searching for their card to be able to participate in the voting process. So those people were asked to stop the search from the onset. And of course, if you don't find your card
at the hour of 6 p.m.
At the hours, some few minutes to 6 p.m. Reason they did that, I asked, was the fact that, look, it's almost time, and therefore there are already a lot of people also in the queue already. So mind you, we should be able to differentiate something here, is the fact that if you are already in the process, you have your card already, and you are in queue in any of the polling stations, then you will have the opportunity to be able to do what? Cast your vote. But if you are now in the searching process of looking for your voting card, then I'm sorry for you. As at that few minutes to 6 o'clock, then you were denied the opportunity. I mean, at the time that I saw them, I'd wanted to engage some of these disenfranchised Guineans in Dakar who could not really cast their votes this evening, but unfortunately language was a barrier, and then some of them also were like, well, we don't really care. We came to be a part of the process, but unfortunately due to the time that we actually arrived and be a part of the process,
now,
tell
us about the expression on their faces. Many of them, I believe, left their homes and their works and also now to vote. Then at this point they were denied. What did you see on their faces?
I saw dejection. I saw unhappy people, unhappy Guineans, people who had wanted to be a part of the process, but because of time constraints. And the question once again you'd ask yourself is, whose fault is it? Did you come early? You knew very well that throughout the whole window opened for you to be a part of the process, gain your national ID card to be able to come in and then vote as early as possible for your own good. You did not do that. All of the windows open up to you and all other avenues open up for you. You could not participate. This 5 minutes left to 6 o'clock is what you want to be a part of the process? Obviously not. But I think despite the rejection, they also did not create lots of scenes as well. I do not know whether because this is not their home, so they just had to take it in a very good faith that we did not come early, and because we did not come early and because we also did not get our cards. But when I asked the electoral officials, they said the card is available, so either tomorrow or tomorrow next or any other day they can come to the various electoral centers at the embassy to actually collect their card, because it is their property as well. It is a national ID card for them, and so they can actually come for it. But to talk about voting, because it's over, and so the next voting that they can actually be thinking about could be somewhere 2032.
Okay, now I'm talking about the counting process. When before leaving the polling stations, did you observe the counting ongoing?
Well, obviously not, because this is not a home affair, so they will just have to collate everything and then rather do the transportation back home to Guinea, where counting, I trust, would obviously happen. But at the time that I was leaving the premises of where I was stationed to come to WADR studios here, voting was at its tail end. And as I said early on, these people were denied the opportunity. Those who came in the last minute searching for their card to go and vote, denied the opportunity. So counting had not really started at that time. But what I picked up on the field was that they will not be doing in-person counting over here. So they would rather gather them and then take them to Guinea for a whole coalition.
When we spoke with you during the afternoon hours, you said people were coming in their numbers to vote. Beginning the evening time, did you observe the same flow of people?
Yes. So I'm sure that was what actually. I'm sure those who came in early on were those that got the opportunity to. If you need to go and then scout for your card, then you'll be able to do that as soon as possible. If you have your card already with you, and then you can actually go through the process and then vote, that is also a plus for you. So in the latter part of the day, that was where more people were trooping in without their card as well. And so if there is any point of tension where it may have actually occurred, it would be during that particular card searching time, because they felt like it's time, and then we heading towards the tail end of the election process or the voting process. And so that electoral officials must obviously find every ways and means of getting my card. And so that was what would obviously lead to, or not necessarily lead, but if there was any tension, it was only at that particular session where people were actually searching for their card.
Talking about the demographic, what did you observe with the men and the women, and including the young people, the turnout? Yes,
obviously election, more men were actually participating, but in terms of women and then young people's participation as well, I would also say yes, it's encouraging, and it obviously comes to buttress the fact that in recent times we've been having conversation about allowing young people to be a part of the process, not just be a part of the process, but also participate. In fact, having a woman also be on the ballot for today's election as well also signals the fact that we are looking for inclusivity and also empowering women to take part in governance as well. And so on the part of the voters, we also see we saw more women and young people come in their numbers to be a part of the process today.
Well, finally, Chris, you said that the voters were very happy. Many of them expressed their desire. We hope for a better in the region, and thank you for providing coverage of the election today.
Well, thank you very much for having me also. And finally, before I take a leave of you, I would like to also say that Guineans are very hopeful and very optimistic, looking at the fact that we just saw what happened in Guinea-Bissau, where on the day of election it was peaceful, as what we're seeing today. However, some few days after, where some 24 hours to the declaration of results, we currently see what is happening in Guinea. They're just optimistic that nothing of this sort would happen again, but rather be able to transition into a democratic state once.
Thank you, Christopher Aticho, for that wonderful observation. Well, we have a political scientist in Ghana who has vast knowledge on regional politics. Dr. Asa Asante joins us live. How are you doing, sir? Good evening and welcome to the broadcast.
Yeah, good evening. I'm fine. And yourself?
Well, we're okay here. How would you describe this crucial presidential election in Guinea?
I think that it's a very important election by all standards because of what Guinea has gone through from democracy to dictatorship, and now there is disengagement into a democratic governance. It is my hope and prayer that at the end of the day, the election will be free, fair, without any intimidation, any harassment whatsoever. Because we saw what happened in 2021, and it has left very, indelible. It's so indelible in our mind, and that we cannot forget that. But I am hopeful that all things being equal, the people of Guinea should be able to express themselves in a manner that they deem fit.
All right. Key opposition figures were barred from participating in this election. Does this undermine the transparency, credibility, and inclusive nature of an electoral process?
Yeah, even though for every election I'm hopeful, but if you look at what is happening in Guinea, I have no doubt in my mind that that is a blot on the democratic credentials of Guinea. Because for any election worth a salt, opposition must be allowed to participate and participate freely. But we have seen prior to the election a ban on protest, a curb in freedom of the press. We have seen a restriction of opposition activity, and then we have seen intimidation and the rest of them. These are things that fly in the face of democracy, and it doesn't augur well for any meaningful democracy. I have said, and I will repeat it here, that as for soldiers, when they take power, they only deceive the public into believing that they are in for them. But when the real show starts, you see their true colors. Look at the leader of the junta, who's leading the country, and he has turned around to, contest the election, and that in itself sent a very wrong signal that soldiers don't want to disengage without they themselves coming in. They went to still shed their military uniform and then come into a democracy and then contest. And it doesn't speak well at all.
Now, before today's election, 87% of voters turned up for a referendum held in September. That vote was largely seen as a test of the incumbent's popularity, and more than 90% voted yes to a new constitution that allows military leaders to run for office, extends the presidential mandate from 5 to 7 years, and creates a Senate, of which a third of members will be presidential appointees. What are the political situations to be addressed by the next president that will be elected?
I believe strongly that Guinea economy is in doldrums. It's not in the best of shapes, I must say. Because if you look at it against the background that it has iron ore and it has the biggest in terms of what bauxite deposits in the world and it's still poor, then it tells you that leaders have a role to play in uplifting the people from the shackles and tentacles of poverty and then squalor. And I expect that whoever takes the reins of government, he should be able to deal with the economy head on. The economy is so critical, and I expect whoever will win the election to take that. If you look at the infrastructure of Guinea, it's nothing home to write about. Even though people who support the government have said that roads, hospital, and other projects have been done in this area, but the people need more because they're entitled to that. We want to see that. We want to see a new government that will also build the media. It will not ban the media or restrict them. It will allow free media to operate so that the media will put a torchlight on where there are dark spaces so that, they will be able to deal with the problems that affect the country. So we want that. We don't also want arrest and detention and ban of protests. There must be freedom of the people to express themselves in whatever form or shape, provided they work within the framework of the law. And of course, we want democratic institutions to be strong so that they can resist any pressure from any government, and then they will fight against corruption, and then they will work towards improving the economic well-being of the people and make Guinea, the Guinea, come back to its lost glory of democracy as one of the important countries that have seen democracy before, and we respect Guinea in that regard. We believe that Guinea can rise again out of this military doldrums and then build a society they can call their own, a society where there is no kaki leading anybody there, a society where there is freedom of movement, there's freedom of association, and freedom of expression.
Now, sir, the Ministry of Territorial Administration is in charge of the elections in Guinea, as opposed to an independent election commission. Does this align with the conduct of a transparent and credible electoral process?
Obviously, Guinea has begun with a negative step because if you are talking about election management body, we want a body that is independent of governmental control and it is free to perform its duty without fear or favor. If you have a system, as you are rightly described, as having been an offshoot of the military government, obviously that there is a worry in the minds of people. But I am always optimistic that let us see what will happen, and then we take the conversation and not further. But Guinea deserves the better. Guinea deserves the best. And I believe that let us all support Guinea to lift up their game in terms of their democratic credentials. Military leaders cannot help anybody. In other words, military regime. But the democracy, even though it takes time for their dividends to be realized, I believe that is the best system of government. And Guinea right in the position to embrace that and then use that to build the cause of freedom, the cause of a just society that they want for themselves.
Well, you said that Guinea has begun with a negative step, and looking at the popularity of Doumbouya, will you be surprised if he wins this election? And what would that say about the voters' choices?
Oh, obviously, if you look at the existing condition, I have no doubt in my mind that if he wins, it will not be different from the story that you and I know. But is it the case that is the true reflection of the people's choice and all that. Yes, people can vote for a leader, but if they believe that harassment, intimidation, prior to the election has also put the fear of God in some people, obviously they will shy away from government and some will vote in order not to incur the wrath of the military. I believe that going forward, Africans will know and that we should not encourage any military regime because there is nothing they can offer and there is nothing that they can do to support anybody. They will only come and then, lead the people into believing that they are there for them. But eventually, we have seen that people who claim they don't want to be part of any, process of disengagement, they themselves are active players. It's not new in military-civil relations. We've seen that in Ghana when Rawlings shed his uniform and also joined the democratic process to contest for election and he won. That characteristics is very ugly in Africa. And I believe that the time has come for people to know that democracy is the only way and that people cannot come and take power and only turn around and then come and contest for election. We criticize that.
Well, throughout the campaign processes heading to today's election, the incumbent largely stay off the campaign trail, although his ministers travel across the country. Well, if this is not unusual, how would you describe this move by the incumbent?
Yeah, but the opposition, what can they do? When you are you're already in exile, those who are here, they realize that the playing field are not even. So that one affect them in a certain way. Ghana experienced that when Rawlings shed his uniform and decided he want to contest after the presidential election, which the opposition described as what? A stolen verdict. They decided to boycott the parliamentary election to send a signal to then President Rawlings that all is not well and they were not prepared to be part of any process that would send people to parliament. So some of these things you can expect from the opposition, because if you look at the story prior to election and all that, I have no doubts in my mind that the opposition has been at a very disadvantaged position. Look at even the former president, Conde, who was, one would have thought that he will come and face the music, and eventually the government pardoned him and all sort of things. It leaves a very distasteful thing in the mouth of the Guineans, that they've been given a raw deal. They were not happy, and that those expressions are there and all that. So what do you expect?
When you talk about disadvantage, it brings me to this next question. The president will be elected by an absolute majority vote, in contrast to a specifically required percentage, as is done in other West African states. What are the advantages and disadvantages for candidates in this process?
Or if a simple majority, as you said, all right, it always puts somebody ahead, because in every election you need to have a leader. But it tells you that majority of the people have voted for you, but you see minority of people who said no, you see their votes very close. It tells you that whilst a large amount of people support you, there are equally some significant number of people who say no. So when you are governing, attention must be paid for. Even though you want to respect majority decision, you want to pay attention to minority interest. That is the spirit behind every democracy. You should be able to walk that fine line and balance the two, so as to provide for all. Because for democracy, as soon as people see that they don't have the dividends of democracy, what democracy brings to the fore, they are not able to grab them and use them to develop themselves to become the best of themselves. Obviously, they want to look at any other means to be able to deal with the situation on the ground. And some of these things do not bode well for any meaningful democracy.
Looking at the fact that civilian rulers in recent time are quote-unquote contributing to declining of democratic credentials, what would you say about the case of Guinea, that a military leader is trying to transition the country into a democratic state?
If you see how the President Conde, handled the system before his overthrow, that was not the best, all right? But that also did not give the military the opportunity to come in. Because if you read some of the scholars who have written about soldiers and government, one general in Ghana said that, look, the military has all manner of training, but in terms of civilian administration, they need to shed their uniform and come into the civil society so as to be able to learn the rudiments in order to govern. So we believe strongly that, look, in spite of whatever provocation or whatever difficulties that civilian society may have, it doesn't give the military the license. But the military always operate a certain theory, what they call the civilian regime performance theory, that the military believe that they are those institutions that have what it takes to deal with what cracks in society, i.e. corruption, decay, and all that. But you and I have known from experience that it is not true. It is just robbing Peter to pay Paul. They come in their own interest, further their interests, and deceive people into believing that they are there for them, only to turn around and govern against them. That we have seen that. So our people who are defenders of democracy must always be up and doing and realize that such leaders do not want their interests, and that we should at all times fight for democracy. It is the only game in town.
Despite the many calls for a return to constitutional order in Guinea, only 6.7 million registered voters were marked out of a population of 15 million. Do you think is there any reason for this low number of voters?
Obviously, if you see prior to election, arrest, intimidation, the ban of critical voices, dissent were curtailed, press were nipped in the bud, and all that, it also obviously would tell you that all is not well. And there are people who do not want to incur more of the wrath of the military in terms of that. You recall the riots that took place, and that led to the former president, soldiers unleashing their anger on the people, killing over hundreds of people and all that. These things are fresh in the minds of people. They don't want to be remembered about that. So they decide that enough is enough. I'm not going to vote. And then, look, I'm going to stay at home. These are protests that people show. And because any meaningful democracy, you want to see a lot of people expressing themselves in a manner that they want, but not through intimidation, harassment, and all that. Once they see those things prior to the election, they advise themselves. Remember, election has three phases: the pre-election phase, the election phase, and the post-election phase. All are important. So if something happens during the pre-election phase, that instills fear, that creates panic, that creates intimidation and all that, people advise themselves. On the election phase, which is the voting day, you will see people at the polling station. And that is what we are experiencing in Guinea.
Dr. Asante, as we wind down this conversation, the electoral organ in Guinea is stating that results will be released in 48 to 72 hours. Is this a considerable period? Or do you believe that there should be reduction in the number of hours to present the results to the public?
Normally, these things are a function of a constitutional instrument, in some cases, certain laws that allow the election management body to declare the election within a certain stipulated time. If this is the case, I have no problem with that, because Guinea have their own laws that govern all these processes. But if it is something that is coming out of the blue, then there is a problem. Then that in itself is distasteful. But if you look at the things that people have talked about in terms of criticism, this have never come up. So it gives me understanding that these are one of the rules that govern elections in the country. But all that I'm saying that, look, the election, yes, people will go through, but it must be devoid of intimidation, harassment, vote buying, and the rest of them. So that at the end of the day, those who will win will receive congratulatory messages, and those who will lose will accept their defeat and abide by the rules of the game.
This will be my second to the last question, sir. The 2021 coup also caused Guinea's suspension from the African Union and sanctions from ECOWAS. Will this transition be a tangible reason for the continental and regional blocs to lift the sanctions and suspension on Guinea?
Obviously, if it satisfies the tenets of free and fair election, that will mean that ECOWAS will accept. But sometimes when these things degenerate and tend to be election which is one-sided, Election which is not free, neither is it fair, then obviously it gives the regional body the cause to reject such scores, and then sometimes they are not prepared to welcome such country into their fold. But we don't know what will happen. Events of today, tomorrow will tell us what is ahead. But fingers crossed, it's my hope and prayer that the best should come to Guinea. They deserve better.
And what should be the level of communication now by all stakeholders ahead of the result announcement, official announcement of the results, looking at what just happened in Guinea-Bissau?
Obviously, people must stay quiet and allow the election management body to declare the results. If people, I don't know the rules governing Guinea in terms of what the elections, but what I know for the election generally, if you are not in favor of the results, you have to pursue your cause in court, not through violence, not through anything that would disturb the peace and security of the country. That is my prayer. But whatever the differences that may come, and people do not understand themselves, I think they must head towards the court and seek redress. But it's my hope and prayer that the results will follow the natural will of the people, so that the people will accept it as free and fair and continue their lives.
Well, finally, Dr. Asante, anything else you want to say before we take leave of you?
I believe that we all in Africa must support Guinea to rise up again and occupy the important position they've occupied in the annals of Africa. Guinea has a beautiful history, a beautiful people, and a beautiful culture that they always showcase to the world. We pray with them, we support them, and it is my hope and prayer that they will come up tops in this election, and Guinea will begin to take their natural position and build a society that they can call their own, a society devoid of intimidation, a society devoid of harassment, a society that is just, with media operating free, without being controlled or under the thumb of any government, however benevolent that government may be. It is our hope and prayer that Guinea will carry the day.
Well, Dr. Asa Asante, thank you for speaking with us again today.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
All right, a political scientist in Ghana and who has knowledge on regional issues, Dr. Asa Asante, there speaking with us on this special broadcast of WADR Decides. That's why Guineans are going to the polls today, and they've been there for hours. They've decided, and it's time for the electoral organ to play its part. Well, listeners and viewers, this is where we draw the curtains on WADR's special broadcast on Guinea's presidential election today. As Guineans have decided and WADR covered, results of this election are expected within 48 hours or 72 hours, according to the country's electoral organ. Thank you for being with us all through today. And as always, a special thanks to our production team, Abdullahi Hassan, Sankule Janko, Christopher Aticho, Mauro Juve, Ismaila Kamara, Mustafa Sek, and Sani Mamunin Seibu will be here later on for the final edition of this coverage for the French edition. I am Augustine Belkali. Stay blessed and stay safe. Goodbye for now.
WADR. You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website, www.wadr.